Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Grand Rounds. I'm Tom Farton, and I organise this thing. And we've had a couple of weeks off. We had an unfortunate cancellation of a visiting speaker a few weeks ago, but he's going to reschedule and come back in the new year. And then just a couple of weeks where, unfortunately, I couldn't find anyone to come and speak at Grand Rounds. So I am looking for people to come and speak next year. I know that a couple of you have been in touch with some ideas for talks, so I'm very grateful for that. If you're sat there thinking I could give a talk at Grand Rounds, then please do let me know. If you know of somebody that you've heard speak recently that you think would be a good speaker at Grand Rounds, then do let me know. I can invite them formally. If you've got student projects, trainees, nurses, AHPs, a bit of research, interesting topic, interesting case you've seen recently, anything at all, do get in touch. We are open to every offer, and we have a pretty empty schedule for the whole of the year. Recognition of trainers. We've welcomed Jordan and Ben before to speak about recognition of training and what it all means, but this is something that we need to do every year. We are a training institution. We train a huge number of medical students and trainee doctors, as well as nurses and AHPs in training. And there is a governance process to become a trainer and to maintain your role as a trainer. So I'm grateful for Jordan and Ben coming back to talk to us again. This is fantastic CPD for me. This goes into my appraisal as my top up for recognition of training. It's a part of that process, but it's an important part. So I'll leave them to introduce themselves because I'm not sure who's going first, but recognition of trainers. If you have any questions, please put them into the comments. There'll be time at the end for questions, and I shall find the QR code so you can scan it in at the end and you can get a certificate to say you've been here. Thanks very much, Jordan and Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So I'm Ben Ulyatt. I'm an anaesthetist, but also an associate director of medical education. And one of the subsets of that role is that I sort the whole of ROT sign-off for the health board. And today I'm with Jordan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jordan Napier. I work in the medical school as staff development lead, but work very closely with the Directorate of Medical Education and Ben. And one of my roles is making sure that we've got CPD that's fit for purpose to help you get through the ROT process.
Right, now let's get these slides to move. Can everybody see these slides and hear us okay? I'll take that as a yes. So what we thought we'd like to go through today is to talk about ROT, and as Tom said, we update this roughly annually. And the reason we're doing this is because the whole process is a bit confusing. And I do know it frustrates some people. So we're going to try and make it as simple as possible and give you some tips and tricks to make your life easier, as well as making our lives easier when we come to assessing everyone's ROT. So what we're going to go through is what is ROT, what does it mean, who needs to have ROT status, what the requirements are for that, and then Jordan has got a whole load of stuff that she delivers and can deliver for you on CPD, so she'll talk a bit about that. Now, ROT initially came in 2012, and this was when the GMC wanted to look at our whole practice and what we are like as both clinicians and educators. And a bit like appraisal and revalidation, we have to provide some evidence on a cycle that shows that we are up to scratch and educating as well as we possibly can. And so, as I say, yeah, it came out in 2012, and this stuff's really important. because if we don't train the next lot of healthcare professionals really well, then patient care is going to suffer in the long run. So it is important, and as I said in my opening statement, it is a bit confusing and does frustrate some people. But the reason I think it's important is because things change. And I'm feeling like Generation Dinosaur at the moment. So for example, I've been delivering a tutorial on neuroanesthesia for the last 13 years. And if I don't look at it and if I don't update it, it's probably going to get a bit tired. The information is going to be out of date. The means by which I deliver it have changed. As we all saw during COVID, we do a lot less face-to-face stuff and a lot more online stuff. And this is an example of that. And the newer guys coming at the bottom are very different to us. They learn differently. And so we need to think about how we are delivering the teaching and training that we do. And so that's why I think it's important. So I'll stop being evangelical and cut to the chase. There are 4 types of role that need to be recognized. So in the undergraduate world, these are lead coordinators, such as our teaching leads and our block leads, and then those perhaps higher up, such as teaching deans and year leads. In the postgraduate world, the only 2 roles that need recognition training are clinical supervisors and educational supervisors. So as you can see there, a clinical supervisor is someone who's responsible for overseeing a trainee's clinical work for a placement and is appropriately trained to do so. And then an educational supervisor is someone who has a more longitudinal view of the trainee. And so we'll see them several times over a year and will feed into the ARCP process. If you don't fall into one of these categories, you do not need recognition of training. So you are then called a supervising clinician. And this is all of us. This is part of good medical practice. We are both allowed to and expected to teach both students, trainees, and we are able to sign off supervised learning events or workplace-based assessments. And that role does not require ROT. It is only for these 4 named roles. Now that there are 7 domains of ROT, the ones in black are needed by clinical supervisors. So it talks about effective and safe patient care, having a good learning environment, delivering teaching and facilitating learning, something about assessment, so whether that's marking stuff or doing OSCE examining, and then your own CPD as an educator. The 2 additional domains, 5 and 6 in red there, these are for the educational supervisor who needs these 2 in addition. And those are that sort of more longitudinal overview, such as supporting and monitoring progress and guiding the personal and professional development of the learner. So what does the process look like? Well, there's an initial recognition process, which is a paper form. And then every 5 years, mapped to revalidation, there is a re-recognition process. And basically you hit rinse and repeat and keep doing that for the rest of your career. And you're squared away as an educator with ROT status. The initial recognition progress, you need induction to the role. You need equality and diversity training with a certificate. and appropriate time in your job plan for that educational role. And if you submit all of that along with some evidence, then we recommend you for initial recognition. Likewise, with ongoing recognition, you submit evidence every 5 years against the domains that I just mentioned, and that is done through SOAR online. So what sort of evidence do trainers need to demonstrate? Well, essentially, there's two ways of doing it. You can either go on a course, and Jordan will talk about some of the local courses we have later on. And the courses will be mapped to the domains of ROT, such as the NES Faculty Development Alliance courses. There may be some college courses in your own particular specialty. And as long as your course maps to the appropriate domains, that's more than enough information. The alternative is to provide a portfolio of evidence, again, mapped to those 7 domains. And in terms of initial recognition, this is the paper-based form that I mentioned, and you fill all of this in. Either route 1, which is you've attended a course, submit your certificate, submit your quality and diversity certificate, and sign all the bits about job plan, etc. And that's you done for initial recognition. The alternative, as I mentioned, is to supply a portfolio of evidence, again mapped against all the framework areas. This is a slightly more unusual way into initial recognition. Most folk just do a course, but you certainly can submit a portfolio of evidence. And we're not talking pages and pages here, certainly less on the side of text with appropriate evidence uploaded, such as student feedback or timetables of teaching. Now, in extreme circumstances, there is a third way in, which is education and training agreement, which we sometimes do. And this is when someone perhaps doesn't have time to go on a course, and there are trainees who don't have education supervisors and need someone really, really quickly. We can get you through on the understanding within the next 6 months you will go on a course and submit the evidence that way. And that way we can get you through pretty quickly so that trainees aren't disadvantaged. Now, ongoing recognition is a separate process, and it is done on SOAR. And as I say, after your initial recognition, the re-recognition becomes aligned with revalidation. And so you need to submit evidence across those 7 domains once within that 5-year period. And this is what the process looks like. So the trainer adds evidence onto SOAR. Appraiser then adds to this and makes any suggestions and comments. You upload in the quality and diversity certificate. At year 4 in your appraisal cycle, I see everyone's Form 7, which is the only bit of SOAR I get to see. So I see the educational bit, and I normally make some suggestions. So if you're after year 4 coming up to year 5 of your revalidation cycle, do look on SOAR, and it's likely that I'll have made some comments on there saying, you know, you're doing really well, or perhaps you need to look at strengthening this area or the other. Then at year 5, we look at it again, and we either say, yeah, great, that looks good, we'll recommend you to NES for re-recognition, and then NES approve it, or there's something that needs more work, and in which case you get another 6 months of grace. And we certainly don't remove trainees at that stage from you. That would just be daft. So you get another 6 months to produce some further evidence. So this is what it looks like on SAW. You complete your Form 3, you self-declare against educational requirements, and then upload your supporting information. Your appraiser fills in this bit on Form 4, and then it comes to us in the DME, and we see your Form 7, and we make some comments there and whether we wish to recognise you or not. Now, one thing that's really, really helpful for us is if you can produce a table mapping your bits of evidence to the domains of ROT, then that makes it very easy for me to see exactly which bits you've done, and also for NES who have the final say in this. Then we can sign you off very quickly. So this is an example of one way of doing it. So down the left-hand side, you've got the bits of evidence that you've collated, and which framework areas they map to. And an alternative to that is to have all the 7 domains, and then a list of which bits of evidence map to that. So it's sort of a flip on the process. And these are some examples of types of evidence that you might submit. This is an example of a good form. So at the top, the appraiser's made some very helpful comments, and has highlighted the educational role and the types of evidence that's seen. And the trainer has completed all the self-declaration, and underneath that there would be a table, as I suggested, mapping that to the evidence. And so some free text is always helpful, and some reflection, which demonstrates that you've been involved in the process. The alternative, as with initial recognition, is to go on a course that might cover all 7 domains, and that would be sufficient evidence to get you through, although I would suggest that reflecting on what you do and whether you're doing it well is perhaps a more useful process, certainly to improve your own role as a trainer. But the bottom line is, for each of those domains, if you can say what you do, so I deliver a tutorial to medical students, why you do it that way, I do it that way because I think it's the most effective, and how well you do it, and the students think that it's good because here is some student feedback, and do that for each of the 7 domains, then that's more than enough information, and it certainly shouldn't be pages and pages of stuff, certainly less than a side of A4. And I think it's over to you, Jordan.
Thank you. Do you want to just keep the slides up and just click on to the next one, Ben? Save me.
Yeah.
That'd be grand. Thank you. Yeah, so this is there's a link here to the NHS Directorate of Medical Education page where there's some information, and the Scottish Trainer Framework. And on the next slide, Ben, there is an overview here of the different development opportunities that we've got locally that you can access that are all mapped to the GMC framework areas. So the two that are highlighted in yellow there fully cover all 7 of the domain areas. So we've got the Enhancing Learning in Medicine programme, which you can either do as a half-day in-person session, and it covers all of the areas, or as individual online sessions, 1 hour each, and there's 4 of them. So you could make that a little bit more flexible and work through them over the course of a year or 2 if you wanted to. And then we've also got the Getting Started with Clinical and Educational Supervision session, which Ben and I run, which is mainly aimed at initial recognition. So those that are about to take on one of the recognised roles for the first time. And particularly we like to see trainees on the lead up to CCT coming along to this so that they can be ready to start in a clinical or educational supervisor role within the early stages of them taking on consultant posts. We run that online. That's a 3-hour interactive session. Again, can be nice and flexible because you can zoom in from anywhere. And I've just put a couple of the different CPD workshops we've got coming up in the new year on different aspects of teaching, but that link at the bottom there, so bookwen.com/staff development, if you go onto that page, every bit of educator CPD that we deliver, we will have put in the description which areas of the GMC framework that it maps to. So you could very easily see which ones will help you achieve the framework areas of 2 and 7 or 4 if there's specific areas or gaps that you can see in your own evidence. And as I said, those 2 ones highlighted in yellow are the ones that cover all 7 areas. I would try and dissuade you just from coming along and doing the same course every 5 years in order to get everything ticked off, but there might be aspects of the different CPD workshops that you think that might be beneficial for just coming along to get an update and get some more evidence, and usually network with other educators as well. Could you click on to the next one, Ben, please? Thank you. This is a list of tricks and tips that we've collated, and you should be able to use the QR code there to get onto this website. We've got a list of ways just to make some of the admin burden around this a little bit easier, because as Ben said, it should be relatively straightforward, but a lot of it relies on you just having a good system for keeping your bits of evidence in a good format. So the tips there are having a folder in your email inbox where you can put all of the bits of evidence that might be useful for ROT, like student or trainee feedback or certificates from conferences and courses. Having a shared folder with your team or your department where you can all share bits of evidence that you jointly can use. So for example, a lot of departments will have a team meeting where training issues are discussed. So actually that evidence, that kind of agenda of that could be used by everyone in the department for evidence for ROT. On that page, you'll also find a Word document mapping grid that you can use to input the bit of evidence, and then as Ben showed, which of the 7 areas that maps to in any of your notes. And you'll also see a link on that page to the staff development booking site where you can have a look and see what's on offer in the next few months and sign up to anything that you think would be useful for you, and that also helps you meet those different criteria in the different 7 areas. And lastly, the tip on that page is just when uploading your evidence or when attending any training or reading any bit of student feedback or engaging in a bit of online reading about a new teaching technique, reflect on it in some way, even if it's just to write a few notes on what have you done, what have you seen, what are you going to do with it, and how might that help you improve your teaching or training role. That reflection really helps us understand that you are meeting the standards and helps us move away from just viewing it as a tick box exercise. So that's my tips. That's the QR code to get onto that tip website there, and I've given you the booking page as well. So I think that is it from me. I'm sure we'll both be happy to take any questions.
Sorry, I was just in the middle of something, but I'm back. Right, that's fantastic. Thanks very much. I had a little list of pre-primed questions to give to you, which you've already answered, to be honest. But one important thing is a question I get asked a lot as Associate Dean is a department has a new consultant who's just started and we're desperate for educational supervisors and they can't get signed off because they've not been on the course yet. And people ask about temporary or provisional recognition of training. And of course, there isn't really there's none of those things don't exist. There's not you either are or you're not. So Ben, maybe you just expand on that. I know you talked about it anyway, but it's just, you know, if a clinical lead or a TPD is in that situation and the new consultant is willing and there's a need, what's the best way to expedite the process?
Yep. So everything goes through our ROT email inbox, which is tay.rot@nhs.scot. And they can send all the stuff out to you. But yes, essentially the process is educator in training is what it's called. And essentially it's a 6-month buy or pass that allows you to fulfill the role whilst you're got time to sign up to the course. And yeah, quite a few people do end up doing this because, you know, it does get late in the day. And what often happens is someone will go on an FDA course or on the course that, or the afternoon that Jordan and I run. And then having done that, that's them squared away.
That's really helpful. And certainly I get asked that a fair bit. Is this, again, just a question I get asked a lot. Once you are ROT, are you ROT for anything and everything, or is it specifically for your own specialty?
No, it's ROT for anything and everything. So, yeah, it would be, well, nothing would surprise me, but it would seem pointless to have to go through the whole process again. So if you're an undergraduate ROT person, and then you start taking on stuff in the postgraduate world, such as ES, CS, you're covered for it. So ROT is ROT, irrespective of what you do.
And there are some dual accrediting specialties, like my own, for example, where I can be ES for general medicine as well as respiratory medicine, but also IMT and foundation and GP. So one ROT covers me for all of that. Yes.
With a slight clarification in that part of the induction to the educational role, it's implied that you have an understanding of the curriculum, including the computer systems of that individual curriculum.
And I suppose that's incumbent on me, isn't it, to make sure that I understand what it is I'm supervising and understand how to use the systems. And although I'm ROT for gynecology, I'm not going to go and become an educational supervisor of gynecology without a significant U-turn in my training and understanding of what's going on. Okay, yeah. That's excellent. And the difference between being recognised as a CS versus an ES, that's another thing that we sometimes crop up, that people are on the list as a clinical supervisor but not an educational supervisor. How easy is that to sort?
Pretty easy to sort. What often happens is people, as I say, most people go on a course for initial recognition, which covers them for all 7 domains. And if they've just ticked the box for CS, when they first start, if they then take on an ES role, we go back to the original application. They're all on file. When we just say it's fine and just add it and it's done. If someone has only produced evidence for 5, then they do need to produce a wee bit of evidence against the other 2. But Jordan gave some examples of solutions to that.
That's lovely. My roommate Dave Connell is going to just slide into my screen here because he has a question.
Thanks for the update. That was great. And I was saying to Tom the other day how impressed I am with all the courses you can do locally, and I'm signing up to one in January with Jordan, which is great. But when I did my ROT course at the beginning, I had to go to some other bit of Scotland. Are there more of the courses online now for the kind of the initial one that you have to do, and do they do updates as well, which could be accessed online?
Yes, so the FDA, the Faculty Development Alliance, are the guys who do this sort of stuff, and it's probably best, as Jordan said, not to the same course repeatedly every 5 years. It would be perhaps a waste of your time, and so it's more usual to submit a portfolio of evidence going on for re-recognition. As I said, there are college workshops. So our college does an advanced educational supervision workshop, which is probably quite a good idea for those who are, like myself, a bit long in the tooth, and for people wanting some slightly some skills for dealing with more difficult situations, such as doctors in difficulty and that sort of stuff, and something like that might be more useful to you.
Okay.
There's no questions. Chat.
Sorry.
Sorry, Jordan, have you got a comment on that yet?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to add in the Faculty Development Alliance do have stuff that is online now rather than all being in person, but they just fill up super quickly. So they've not got a huge amount of capacity. They do have an advanced medical educators course, but I can see that they've had one this year and it was full. So I don't really know what the update on the kind of Faculty Development Alliance stuff is. But we'll continue to try and deliver a mixture of in-person and online stuff locally to make sure that we meet the kind of need for Tayside.
Brilliant. And I should personally acknowledge the amount of work you put into this, Jordan, over the years since I've known you. It's actually since you left our department, deserted us. The amount of work you've personally put into this is absolutely is amazing, and I think we should really recognise how much you push this forward. So thank you. There is a question from Gordon Marin, who says, with regards to the enhancing learning in medicine modules to do in your own time, I can see the slide sets to download, but is this the way it's intended to be done? Is there any accompanying narration? Where is the form to show you've completed the module? Thanks.
Okay, so there is on that website there, you'll see all the resources for the Enhancing Learning and Medicine workshops, but those resources are intended to be post-workshop resources that you have a look with after you've engaged in the workshop, Gordon. We do also have a range of different modules that you can do in your own time that are purely asynchronous on that site, and it's on the Educator CPD on the go tab. And in that, you'll come into a SWAY module, you can work through it and then complete a form at the end, and you'll be issued with a certificate. So there's kind of two different ways of doing it, but you've managed to just get into some of the post-workshop information, which there's no harm in that, but it's mainly meant to just be additional info after you've attended the session.
Lovely. Anybody else got any questions or comments? Anything they'd like to tag on? This is obviously a really important bit of work. I know it is the extra thing that gets tagged on to appraisal meetings, and there's a sigh of, well, another thing to do. But this educational governance is so important. Our trainees are the core of everything we do here in the hospital, and out in primary care as well, for that matter. And it's so important that we can demonstrate that we're providing high quality care. And quality teaching. Dilip Nathwani, who was DME here for some time, used to say to me, that you can map quality education right next to quality care. They always go hand in hand. You can tell the centres and the departments that teach well, they'll provide good care. And I think he's right in so many ways. So thank you for supporting us in the work we do, Jordan. Thank you very much to Ben for keeping us all right with this. He looks through every single Form 7 out of all of the consultant body, and it's a huge amount of work, and he reads them all and comments. It's a massive amount, so thanks, Ben, for that. And you come back and do this every year for us. We're grateful. It's really a good bit of a good update. I will edit out the bits and bobs and put this onto YouTube so people can watch it, so do reference it. I did say I would share
one last thing, Tom.
Code, and I will just find the QR code and share it. He says, stalling for time.
Can I add one thing, Tom, while you're looking?
Do so, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I wrote a Idiot's Guide to ROT, dumbed down, and apparently I hadn't dumbed it down anywhere near enough and hadn't made it idiotic enough. So I've rewritten it, made it even more idiotic, and had put an abbreviated guide to the Idiot's Guide, and I'll be sharing that with everyone in the board in the next few days.
Okay, well, that I look forward as a certified idiot. I look forward to reading your guide that you've written specially for me. That's brilliant. The QR code is on the screen now. You should be able to use your phone to look at that. Go to the website, put in the details. It's the same form every week. So if you just save the link, you can then put in the details of every Grand Round you've been to. Or if you're watching this on YouTube later, then you can still use the QR code. Just put in that you watched it virtually afterwards. It's an honor system, you know. We believe you, but it's really useful to us to know who's watched what and where and when, and also it means that you can put it into your appraisal. Okay, everyone, thanks very much for coming along. Next week is the last week of 2023. Phil Lacou came to speak for his retirement Grand Round just a few weeks ago and gave us a lovely talk about his life and career, particularly with humanitarian efforts that he's done and working abroad. But he didn't have time to talk about the Antarctic, a lot of work he's done there. So I persuaded him to come back and do his post-retirement talk about experiences in the Antarctic, which perhaps fits in nicely with the talk closest to midwinter. So tune in next week for Phil Lacou and an Antarctic experience. And after that, it's 2024, and I'm looking for speakers. So please do get in touch with anything you might want to talk about. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks again. That's us.
Thank you, Tom. See you later.